Join me in learning Chitas together for Shabbos, the 7th Torah reading of Parshas Vayeitzei, chapter 31, verse 43. Yesterday we learned as Lavan pursues Yaakov and reaches as Yaakov tries to run away from Lavan with his family. Lavan accuses Yaakov for running away with deceivingly and for stealing the idols. Yaakov rebukes Lavan for the very fact that he accuses him of stealing the idols and tells him how hard he worked and how he cheated him all the time. And now Yaakov and Lavan continue their discussion. Vayan Lavan. And Lavan now responds to Yaakov. And he says, Vayomer el Yaakov, and he says to Yaakov, Habanis b'noisai, the daughters are my daughters, Vabanim banai, and the sons are my, and the children are my children, Vatzoin tzoini, and the flock are my flock, V'chol ashatarei li, whatever you see over here, lihu, belongs to me, is mine. Uvilivnoisai, and as to my daughters, Mo'asalela, how can I even do anything to them, to hurt them? Hayom today. Oililiv name, or even their children, Asher Yaladu, that they have borne. For 43, Rashi says, how can you even imagine that I would even do something bad to them? Verse 44, Viata now, so come now. Let us make a covenant. Ani va'ata, I and you, and may Hashem be a witness between me and you. The Rebbe explains, if you look at Lavan's argument, Lavan says, Yaakov went to Lavan for 20 years and he understood that Lavan was a Ramai, Lavan was a Aramite, but the same word Aram comes from Ramai, he was a cheat. And he had to make sure that while he was by Lavan to not forget where he comes from, because he was always countered with this idea that Lavan was telling him, that the children are mine, the daughters are mine. When you have children, why do you have to teach them about Torah? Teach them the ways of the land like Lavan the Aramite. He goes on to say, and he says, even if you want to educate your children, but when it comes to business, you got to follow ways of trickery and not follow the ways of the Torah. And therefore, Yaakov has to constantly have this struggle while in exile, while he was in Padan Aram. He constantly had to fight with Lavan on the ideals and the values for his children and for what Yiddishkeit stands for. So to us in exile, we have to remember not to listen to the Lavan to say Atzoin Tzoinai, to be able to go in the ways of Lavan and work honestly and ethically according to the ways of the Torah. Verse 44. V'hoya le'ed, who should be this witness? And over here Rashi tells us the word terminology, le'ed, is a male terminology, referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem should be the witness. Verse 45. Yikach Yaakov Evan, and Yaakov then took a stone, Vayirimeh Matzeva, and he made it as a monument. Verse 46. Vayomer Yaakov le'echav, and Yaakov said to his kinsmen, to the people that were with him, Liktu avonim, gather stones. Vayikhu avanim, and they took stones. Vayasu gal, and they made a mound. They formed a mound. Vayechlu sham ala gal, and they ate there on the mound. Echav, who does it mean? His kinsmen, his people that were with him. Heim banav, that's his children. Shahayu loy achim, that they had brothers amongst themselves, and they're like brothers to him, because since they participated in everything he did, Nigashim elav l'tzarim l'chaman, they were there to help him at any trial or tribulation, whether it was war or suffering that he was going through. Yikra loy Lavan, and Lavan then called this Yigar Sahadusa, the Aramaic word for mound of testimony. Yaakov karle galid, and Yaakov called it a galid. You could add this to your trivia, that if you want to know where is there an Aramaic word in the Torah, Yigar Sahadusa is one of the only Aramaic words found in the Torah. Yigar Sahadusa, Rashi says, Targume Shel Galid is the translation in Aramaic of the word Galid, which means mound of testimony. Verse 48. Vayomer Lavan, and Lavan said, may this mound be a witness between me and you today. Al Kain Karashmei Galid, and therefore they called it Gal Eid as a testimony for Gal Eid, splitting the word. Gal Eid, the mount of testimony. Rashi, Gal Eid, a mound of testimony. Verse 49, Vaha mitzpah asher omar, and also the mitzpah, the lookout, that he said, for Lavan had said, Asher yitzef Hashem beini veinecha, may God keep watch between me and you. Kini sasar ish mereyeu, that if we were to be that between me and you, when we were out of each other's sight. Kini sasar ish mereyeu, when we couldn't observe another to see if we are violating the covenant or not. Rashi memtes, Vahamitzpah 49, Vahamitzpah Sher Amar, Vahamitzpah with the hey, Hamitzpah, the well-known lookout, which is Asher Bahara Gilad, which is a Mount Gilad. Commissioner, as it says, Vayaveres Mitzpah Gilad and Shoftim, in the book of Judges it says that they traversed over the lookout of Gilad. And therefore the first comes to explain, no Manikra Shema Mitzpah, why was it called Mitzpah? Like looking out, Levisha Amar, Kol Echad Mehem, because Yaakov and Lavan said to each other, Lechaveirei, Yitzaf Hashem b'ini b'necha, that Hashem should be the one to observe, to make sure in Taver Sabrius that we should not desecrate and we should not violate the covenant that we made with one another. What is it? What is that covenant? And now he continues. Im ta'ana es b'noisai, if you will ill-treat my daughters. Im tikach noshim al b'noisam, when you're going to marry other women in addition to my daughters. Ein ish imanu, there is none among there may be no one else present who knows. Only Hashem is witness to see what will happen between me and you. Over here in Rashi, verse 50, if you notice, he uses the terminology. He says benoisai twice. Benoisai, he mentions his daughters twice because he's referring to Av Bila v'Zilpa benoisav shalav hayu, because Bila and Zilpa were the maidservants, technically. They were also Lavan's daughters. However, they were daughters from Mipilegesh, from a concubine, not from his real wife, so therefore they were considered as bondswomen in his home. In Tanes Benoisai, what does it mean if you're going to make them suffer? Meaning, refusing to be intimate with them. Verse 51. Vayomer Lavan leYaakov, and Lavan said to Yaakov, Hine agalazavi, hine matzeva asher yirisi b'nei v'necha. Here is the mound and here is the monument that I've erected between me and you. Yorisi, Rashi says, like the word kemo yoravayam, like if we find in the book of Exodus, kazeshu yera hachetz, like somebody who shoots an arrow, something that comes up, you're bringing it up, you're making it, you're erecting something. Verse 52, Eid hagalazeh, the mound will be a witness. The Eid HaMatzev, and the monument will be a witness as well. That I will not cross over to you beyond this mound. And this monument, to do anything bad to you. Verse 52, Rashi, Im ani, if I, Hare im, in this case, is Mishamish B'lashon Asher, that, not if as a condition, if I do or not, but that I will not cross over the mound to come to you to do anything hostile. Like we mentioned before in chapter 24, when Eliezer said, and that I have to first say my words. I am not allowed to cross to do something terrible to you, hostile. However, I could cross over to do something of peace, of business, that is allowed. Vayizba Elikei Avram, Elikei Nachar, the God of Avram and the God of Nachar. And the gods of Nachar, Yishpetu Beinenu, should judge between us. Elikei Avihem, the gods of our father, which includes Terach at this point. Vayishav, and he swore, Vayishav Yaakov, and Yaakov swore, Befached Aviv Yitzchak, with the dread of his father Yitzchak. Rashi, Elikei Avram, and over here, if you notice, there's different gods that they may be referring to. Elikei Avram, Kodesh, in this case it's referring to a godly, it's talking about Hashem. Velikei Nachar, but when he talks about Nachar, this is talking about his idolatries, because Nachar was an idolater. Elikei Aviyam, which is talking about the father of Avram and Nachar, which was Terach, he also served idols, and therefore in this case, it's also not referring to God. Yizbach Yaakov Zevach Bahar, and Yaakov then slaughtered animals on the mountain. Vayikra Lechav, and he called his kinsmen. Lecha lechem, to break bread, to eat a meal together. Vayechlu lechem, and they ate bread. Vayilino bahar, and they had a meal and spent the night on the mountain. Vayizbach Yaakov zevach, shochat behemoth l'mishta. He slaughtered the animals to have a meal. Before it was about bringing sacrifices, but now we're talking about making a meal. Vayizbach le'echov, le'oyevav shimon Lavan. Not that it means literally his brothers, but for his friends, his kinsmen that were there together with Lavan. Lecho lechem, kol davar meichel, anything that is eaten, kari lechem is called bread. It doesn't mean that they literally had bread. Kemoy avad lechem rav nishchasav eitz balachme. Chapter 32, verse 1. Vayash came Lavan Babaker, and Lavan got up that morning, Vayinashek lebanav l'bneisav, and he kissed his grandchildren, l'bneisav, and to his daughters, Vayivarech esem, and he blessed them, Vayelech, and he went, Vayashav Lavan l'mkaimei, and Lavan returned to his home. Verse 2, V'Yaakov halach l'darkei, and Yaakov continued on his way, Vayifku bei malachei elikim, and the angels of God went out to greet him. Which angels of God? So, as we recall in the beginning of this parsha, it says that there were different angels that left Eretz Yisrael, and then angels from outside of Eretz Yisrael came to greet him. Now the angels of Eretz Yisrael are coming to greet him as well. Vayifku bei malachei elikim, malachim shel Eretz Yisrael, bol likrasei, the angels of Eretz Yisrael came out to greet him, v'lavoisei la'aretz, to greet him, to escort him home to the land of Israel. Verse 3, Vayomer Yaakov, and Yaakov said, Kasherom, when he saw them, Machane Elikim, this is a God's encampment. Vayikra Shem Hamokim Ahu Machanoim, and he named that place Machanoim, which means twin camps. Machanoim, Rashi tells us, Shtei Machanois, two camps. Why two camps? Because you have Shel Chutz Alaret Shabo Imei, you have the ones that escorted him from outside Eretz Yisrael, Ad Kan Vishal Eretz Yisrael Shabol Dikrasei, and then the ones of Eretz Yisrael that came to greet him now to escort him into the land of Israel. The Rebbe explained something fascinating if you look at the difference when the angels came here and the angels previously. The angels previously were in a dream, and over here the angels come to greet him in person. The difference is that over here Yaakov spent 20 years in exile. So over here we learned something very important, two important lessons, especially for us, the Jews in exile. That now that we're in the time of preparing the world for Mashiach, that we have to remember when going into Galus, when doing our job in Galus, we're not going alone. God tells us and sends angels with us in Galus, that we should be able to overcome the Galus, overcome the Lavans of our time. And if and when we are successful in Galus, we then are able to see not only the angels in a dream, but the angels there taking us and bringing us to the ultimate redemption. This concludes the Torah reading for Shabbos Parshas Vayeitzei.